heartbroken.
Should be terrified, should be so scared.
Ellie Smith speaking through tears 4 days into a nightmare with no end in sight.
The tent was completely open. It was about 30 centimetres from being open, and I turned around to Jake and I just said, like, Cleo's gone.
Her precious 4-year-old Cleo still missing from this remote WA campsite after vanishing from their family tent on Saturday. They put her to bed in her pink pyjamas on Friday night. By morning, she and her sleeping bag were gone.
She would never leave that tent alone.
Investigators struggling to solve the baffling mystery. Is little Cleo lost, or worse, was she snatched?
Beautiful, delicate. She has like the biggest heart. She just so funny.
Interstate Police joining the public appeal as the hunt goes national. Cleo Smith's parents have spent every day in that campsite nervously waiting for some good news. But with every hour that passes, the likelihood of a happy ending fades away. An unseasonable storm hampering the search effort this morning. 6 hours lost in a race that already has time against it.
Really all we need is a little go home.
Louise Rennie, 9 News.
We just seen an emotional plea from the parents of 4-year-old Cleo Smith, thanks to 9news.com.au. We are looking and we're going to help them search for Cleo Smith from Western Australia missing. We're going to help try and find this baby. So this is really important, guys. If you know people in Australia, anywhere in Australia, please send this out so they can get as much information as possible, shared as far as possible, so people are on the lookout for this baby. Let's go and take a look at the case so far. Let's start at bbc.com, and this was 5 days ago from the sort of beginning of the case, and let's find out what was been going on. Australian police say they have grave concerns for a 4-year-old girl who disappeared from a remote coastal campsite at the weekend. And this takes place out on Western Australia coast at the Coiba blowholes. I'm hoping that I'm saying that right. These people were from Carnarvon, which is here, a little town, possibly an hour or so from the Coiba blowholes. And hopefully as we get further on, we're going to actually see some good pictures to tell us what it was actually like, the terrain and so forth, how many people were there and that sort of thing. But this is where it's centred. Cleo Smith was last seen sleeping in her family's tent at the Coiba Blowholes camping ground in Western Australia early on Saturday morning. It is now Monday afternoon here in New Zealand. Her mother said early the next morning that the tent was open and the girl was gone, along with her sleeping bag. An extensive air and sea search is continuing. Cleo's mum, Ellie, told local media of their horrendous past few days. She said, "We haven't really slept," she said at an emotional news conference. She said, "Everyone asks us what we need, and all we need is our little girl home. The worst part is we can't do anything more. It's out of our hands, so we feel hopeless and out of control." This case has attracted national attention, but actually it's attracted world attention. Authorities have not disclosed any information on what they think happened to the girl, but have said they will leave no stone unturned. On Tuesday morning, Regional Inspector John Mundy told Breakfast Sunrise that investigators could not rule out the possibility that she might have been taken and removed from the area. Quite a lot of people had been staying at the campsite where Cleo went missing, he added, and police were tracking and tracing everyone who had been there on Friday night. Australian media reported that Cleo's family had travelled to the remote site, about 900 kilometres or 560 miles north of Perth, at the weekend for a camping trip. The Coiba Blowhole site in McLeod is a local attraction on the state's coral coast, known for its wind-swept ocean scenery, sea caves and lagoons. Mum, Ellie, said she put Cleo to sleep after dinner on Friday night, seeing her again at 1:30 a.m. when she woke up asking for water. Cleo was sleeping on an air mattress next to her younger sister's cot in a separate room of the family's tent. She saw the tent open and Cleo gone at 6 a.m. when she went to give her youngest daughter a bottle, she added. We went looking, trekking, making sure she wasn't around the tent, said Ellie. There we got in the car and started driving around everywhere. We realised we had to call the cops because she wasn't there. So this is a good photo of the area and how remote it is. But you can see, obviously, the camp area and the local shacks. At times, bad weather has hampered the search. However, on Tuesday, police crews were seen scouring the deserted white beaches and scrubby bush for signs of Cleo. Private helicopter services and mounted police also joined the effort. Police said they had focused their search on a row of shacks near the coastline. By late Monday, they had scaled back their search efforts from the water, local media reported. Let's move on to the next article at watoday.com.au. Little Girl Lost, The Disappearance of Cleo Smith, and this is by Peter de Kruif, or I don't even know how to say that, but this was released about 24 hours ago. 2 days ago, 48 hours. The sun would have nearly set when the family of 4 from Carnarvon caught sight of the Indian Ocean. After driving north for just under an hour, passing dusty orange plains, the vast flats of Lake McLeod and thick shrublands, beautician Ellie and salt mine worker Jake reached the T-junction at the Quoba blowholes with her daughter Cleo Smith 4 and their baby Isla in tow. Taking the left at the T-junction and meandering for a kilometre down the limestone track, past the blowholes where seawater blasts through the ground, the family arrived about 6:30 p.m. on October 15th at a picturesque cul-de-sac featuring a coral lagoon and campsite. Littered with shacks owned by Carnarvon locals, the spot has served as the perfect weekend family getaway for generations of residents or as an overnight stopover for travellers. The Blowholes campsite has always had an inherent feeling of safety for the people who grow up spending their holidays there thanks to its calm waters and neighbours who watch out for each other. Those feelings were shattered 1 week ago when Ellie and Jake woke up the morning after the lake camp set up to every parent's nightmare. A wide open flap at the front of their tent and no sign of Cleo. Her sleeping bag was gone. 1 week later, and the disappearance of Cleo Smith, a bubbly girl with bright eyes and a love for rocks and wearing princess dresses, has gone from a desperate land and sea search around the campsite to being treated as a presumed abduction. The case has captured the nation's attention as the sleepy town of Carnarvon finds itself in the headlines for a mystery which could loom over the town for years to come. And the people of Carnarvon have certainly rallied this week in a mammoth search effort to find Cleo, who was last seen wearing her pink and blue butterfly pyjamas. But all the helicopters, drones, the army, mounted police, boats and hundreds of volunteers have been unable to find any trace of Cleo at the Blowholes camp. Searchers believe it is unlikely the girl would have wandered a kilometre in the dark sometime between 1:30 a.m. when she woke her mum to get a drink and 6 a.m. when she was discovered missing, all the way to the cliffs and blowholes while dragging her sleeping bag. To walk inland also seems unlikely. It is rocky and hilly terrain with spiky prickle grasses and dense shrub. The dunes and shrublands parallel to the camp have been difficult for the State Emergency Service volunteers to navigate in the daylight, let alone for a 4-year-old in the dark. Mum Ellie said Cleo did not even like to walk 5 minutes to the shops from her house without her mum. So we've got to remember that this is a tiny 4-year-old child who generally stick to their mum and dad or stick to their mum. Ellie said she would never leave us. She'd never leave the tent. She was wearing, when she left, a jumpsuit, and she can't go to the toilet without my help unzipping it, she said on Tuesday. Ellie and Jake had been within a separate section of the tent, but the front zip had been opened to a point that was out of reach for Cleo, police said on Wednesday. With no physical leads to show Cleo had wandered off alone, it was announced on Thursday the camp search would be wound back. The criminal arm of the investigation, codenamed Rodea, has been ramped up to include a task force of 100 officers led by Superintendent Rod Wild. WA Premier Mark McGowan announced on Thursday a $1 million reward for information which resulted in finding Cleo or securing a conviction for anyone involved in her disappearance. A University of Newcastle Criminology Associate Professor Mallet said that announcing such a sizable reward after 1 week was unusual but positive. Went on to say it is a sign they're struggling with finding information, but on the flip side, they're highly incentivised to get as much information as possible. Continuing, it just shows how quickly they want to move on this and how quickly they want to be seen to be moving on this. It's such a high-profile case. They really need to be doing the right thing and be seen to be doing the right thing. And to dampen wider fears in the community as well, until we know who took her and why, it's really difficult to say whether there is any recurring risk. Police have tried to reassure the public there is no danger for others, but have no leads on who may have taken Cleo. No forensic test results from the tent have been released to the public. Registered sex offenders living in the region are being interviewed by police as they eliminate individuals from a potential list of persons of interest. But anyone who stayed at that camp during the time of Cleo's disappearance could still be a suspect, police say. All the more troubling is that not everyone who was at the blowholes that night may have been registered. Wild said, "We believe there may have been people around that campsite that didn't check in." No one has come forward publicly to say they saw Cleo at the camp, but Wild said one of the shacks had CCTV, which police are reviewing. But just because everyone at the camp could be a suspect does not mean Ali and Jake are being treated as such by the police. And please listen very carefully to this, guys. Just because everyone at the camp could be a suspect does not mean Ali and Jake are being treated as such by police. The distraught couple has only spoken to the media once in an emotional one-on-one interview with a journalist from the ABC, rather than face the large media contingent covering the disappearance. Armchair sleuths and internet detectives, in an age of seemingly endless true crime podcasts and documentaries, have heard vile online accusations at the parents who have refused to leave the campsite as they wait for Cleo to return. Mallet says there was a tendency for people to jump on the social media bandwagon in high-profile cases, just like the case of Gabby Petito, who went missing recently and was later found in Wyoming National Park. Mallet says, "I think what people fail to realise is there's a whole gamut of emotional responses to a situation like this." She said it is unfair to judge people based on their responses, such as if they were not tearful or openly distraught. I would caution against judging anyone based on their responses because they don't know how we will respond. Ali and Jake have put their faith in police to find their little girl. The end of the search around the campground means Ali's fears of third-party involvement may now be a reality. Such a scenario opens up millions of possibilities in her head, she said, all of which are hard to fathom. So I want to take this moment to just say, after this statement, there is no evidence that points to the parents being involved in this disappearance whatsoever. And without evidence-based or fact-based speculation, look, I just don't want to see comments that are targeting the parents and being disgusting and vile. They don't need it. They are looking for their baby. So please be very careful and respectful in the comments below. Cleo's family face a heartbreaking wait. Smith said the family hadn't slept and felt hopeless and out of control. Everyone asks us what we need, and all we need is our little girl home, she says. Anyone with information is urged to contact WA Police on 131 444 or Crimestoppers Australia 1800 333 000, and I'm going to put that information in the description box below if anyone needs it. Let's move on. So this next article is from 7news.com.au. Forensic officers scour Cleo Smith's Carnarvon home for clues that could lead to breakthrough in the case of the missing 4-year-old. This also was published on the 23rd of October, which was a couple of days ago. Today is the 25th. Forensic officers spent Saturday scouring the Carnarvon home of Cleo Smith for any potential clues that could lead to a breakthrough in the case of the missing 4-year-old. Officers canvassed the outside of the Smiths' family home for fingerprints 8 days since the young girl went missing from the Blowholes campground. WA Police insist Cleo's parents are not their target. It says the forensics team was sent to the home to firm up the growing suspicion the 4-year-old was taken, and amid fears the abduction was premeditated and planned, maybe meticulously. We've ruled out the fact that Cleo could have left of her own accord, criminologist Mallet told 7 News. So really we're left with the only conclusion that an adult has actually taken her from that tent. And at the moment, the police will be trying to narrow down who that adult may be. While it's standard practice for police, it signals the end of the land search around the campsite from which she went missing, as authorities focus their attention on a criminal probe into Cleo's suspected abduction. And I want to just take a moment. These parents now have to come to the realisation that their daughter is not going to be found around that campsite, that it probably is going to be an abduction, and that's a very, very sad thing that they have to come to grips with. Western Australia Premier Mark McGowan has urged anyone with information about the 4-year-old's disappearance to come forward and help with their investigation. He said there were more than 100 police officers searching for Cleo, as well as volunteers and army reserves. He said on Saturday, "I urge anyone who has knowledge of the location of Cleo, please provide that information to police and ensure that we can provide some certainty and information to Cleo's loved ones and hopefully bring Cleo back safe and sound." Detectives believe she was taken from her family's tent at the popular Blowhole site on WA's northwest coast in the early hours of last Saturday morning. Surveillance footage from motels and children's clothing stores is being sought by detectives, and police have also launched a fresh appeal for any dashcam or CCTV footage recorded last weekend within a 1,000 kilometre radius of the Blowholes campsite. Detectives are particularly interested in motel check-in and communal areas, service stations, fast food outlets and bakeries, truck stops and free camping areas, children's clothing stores, pharmacies and cosmetic stores, and camping stores. Community service announcements appealing for information regarding her disappearance are also being broadcast on radio stations. Cleo was last seen, as we know, by her parents about 1:30 a.m. on Saturday. Mum said she woke around 6 a.m. to discover the little girl was missing from the family tent. And, every picture you see of this baby just rips your heart a bit more. It has been confirmed the zipper on the tent was found open to a height that Cleo could not have reached, seemingly ruling out the possibility she wandered off on her own. Her red and black sleeping bag is also missing. Investigators have spoken up to 20 registered sex offenders in the area, but there are currently no suspects. Superintendent Rob Wild said, "Given the information now that we've gleaned from the scene, the fact the search has gone on for this period of time and we haven't been able to locate her, it leads us to believe she was taken from the tent." He said authorities were keeping an open mind in relation to whether Cleo may have been taken by someone known to her. Police have not ruled out the possibility Cleo may have been taken across state borders, and that's really why sharing the information today is so important. 9news.com.au, this was released this morning, a few hours ago, so we have got the latest update here. Police search for passenger vehicle and Cleo Smith disappearance. Police are hopeful a smaller passenger vehicle spotted in a crucial 30-minute window the night Cleo Smith vanished may hold the key to finding the missing 4-year-old girl. Western Police announced the potential breakthrough sighting on Sunday, 9 days after Cleo vanished and following hundreds of calls to Crimestoppers and the offer of a $1 million reward for information. The driver may not be a suspect, but the timing is crucial. About 90 minutes after she was last seen at 1:30 a.m. on Saturday, October 16th, in a tent she was sleeping in with her parents at the Blowholes campsite. Detective Superintendent Rod Wild said the smaller vehicle, probably a passenger vehicle, was seen driving south towards Carnarvon between 3 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. I do know from another article that there was some speculation or rumours that people had heard a car squealing away from the scene at about between those times, or before those times, around the time she went missing. He said the vehicle turned out of Blowholes Road and turned south towards Carnarvon. What we're hoping for is the persons that were in that vehicle to come forward and make themselves known. He said the individual or individuals in the passenger vehicle are not considered suspects. He said we just want to establish who they were and what they were doing at that time. He declined to speculate as to whether Cleo was in the vehicle of question or in question. The sighting was reported by 2 people who were travelling together along the northwest coastal highway in the early hours of that morning, and they only had been able to provide a limited description of the vehicle. Mr. Wild said if Cleo had been abducted, it was likely she was still within WA as a result of the tight border restrictions that are in place at the moment. Detectives have been scouring the family's home for any clues that might indicate the kidnapping was pre-planned, but Mr. Wild said it was more than likely it was a chance event. He said there's no evidence that Cleo was stalked at all. Police also revealed evidence that proved Cleo had been at the campsite the night before she disappeared, with a CCTV microphone recording her voice. And the reason that I think the police have come out to acknowledge that there's proof there was there is because of the speculation. A lot of people have said, oh, well, did the parents actually have her there at all? So there's some shacks there with motion sensor CCTV. It is very limited. From one of the shacks, the CCTV there, we have reviewed that. We believe that Cleo's voice is heard on the CCTV, and from that we've confirmed, and we also have further information, evidence from the parents that establishes that certainly Cleo was there on that evening. Mr. Wild said the CCTV footage picking up Cleo's voice was just after the family arrived at the campsite. Anyone, again, with information should contact Crimestoppers on 1800 333 000. And again, this information is going to be in the description box below. Thank you for listening to this case, this story. It is so important that we do as much as we can to help the family of Cleo and get as much information as we can out there. So please, if you know anyone in Australia, send them this information, send them this, share it, so they can then again share it with people they know. We need to keep eyes out for Cleo. She's just a baby. This is a tragedy. I'm going to keep you informed of any updates that come along. I will probably put updates in the comments and also on our NZ Mysteries Facebook page. Please go there. You can also go to nzmissing@gmail.com if you want to get hold of me, and if you can shout us a $3 coffee, I would be appreciative. You could go to buymeacoffee.com/NZ Mysteries. But otherwise, let's see you in the next one. Thank you very much for listening to this story and helping. Let's hope for something positive to come out of this, and hope that they find this baby girl. Thanks, guys.